Hello, good evening, and welcome back. Google Chief, I disclose smart speakers before guests enter my home. Yes, Big Brother is here. And it's one of those things, of course, that you think, oh, well, it's a private company, so what are they going to do? Okay, they might set up advertising, but what else matters? And then, yeah, okay, so initially I'd think, yep, okay. But then they also have a political agenda. Then they're also in league with the government, or the ruling powers, if you will, of whichever country that they're operating within. And so you could say the president, if you will, the court then. And so seeing as they have the power to enact changes in laws, because of course that is what lobbying is, there are no monopolies that can exist without the help of government. And that's what they're trying to enact here. And we'll get to that at the bottom of this when they say that they want more regulation. Similarly to why richer people want higher taxes, because they know how to avoid them. The classic being a few decades ago with supposedly a 90% marginal tax rate in the US, but the first 2 pages were saying how it was done, and the next 10,000 or 15,000 pages were to then say the exceptions to the rule. So, let's read on. It's admission that appears to have caught Google's devices chief by surprise. After being challenged as to whether homeowners should tell guests smart devices, such as Google Nest Speaker or Amazon Echo Display, are in use before they enter the building, he concludes that the answer is indeed yes. As in they are always listening, as in they are always watching, as in you have no privacy. Now you might think, okay, well, this isn't such a big problem because that means you have to actually have the staff there in order to see what is being said, or what is to see what is being done and to hear what is being said. But then you realise, well, no, seeing as their algorithms and their voice recognition is already so good, they don't actually need this because they can have computers do it for them, in which case that saves a lot on labour, in which case you're screwed. And that's the answer here, that their algorithm will, of course, pick up on things. The classic then would be of any terrorist plots, but what's to say they wouldn't extend this out to any politics they disagree with, like libertarianism, or just wanting to be an individual. Or actually wanting equal laws for everybody, because these days that seems to be a radical thought of, hey, I want everybody to be treated equally, regardless of their history, or their ethnicity, or their income, or their ideology. Now that's radical. And you might think, no, hang on, that's what people are pushing for, isn't it? It's like, okay, cool. What that means is, I want a law for everybody, where the law is, let's say, anybody who drives a car needs a driving license. Cool, that's our law. That doesn't mean everybody who needs a driving license, everybody who drives a car needs a driving license, except for, no, it isn't. Like the army, for example. If you want to join the army, everybody must be clean shaven. Except for if your religion says that you need a beard. Okay, hang on, what? So with taxation. So yes, everybody must pay these taxes, unless you're part of a religion which is been older, at least as old as the Mormons, for example, as they have in America. It's that kind of thing. Or everybody must pay the same income tax, unless you earn less than the lower bracket. Or if you're in a different bracket, in which case you have to pay a different amount. Or then you earn even more than that, in which case you have to pay a higher amount until you get to the top bracket and the top amount. So it isn't everybody must pay the same amount of tax, because it isn't everybody must be treated equally. Because that is not the law. And it has never been the law. So these days it is therefore a radical thought to think that everybody has to be treated equally. Yeah indeed. So what about maternity and paternity leave? Well, under UK law, thankfully, yes, finally, they have finally said, well, it's going to be the same for both. You can either have the same time amount off as each other, or one of you can have the full time of 26 weeks, and therefore the other has less, or you can calculate it accordingly, it depends. But then individual employers, of course, say it's different amounts. That yes, the woman can have a few weeks or months off, and the man can't. And hey, who cares about that law in that regard? Because there are always ways around it, and as long as they're offering then the female, then that's fine. But I suppose we really shouldn't get into that one then. Or when it comes to divorce proceedings or alimony or prenups, because you think, oh, what a prenuptial agreement. So it's something you agreed before marriage, that you are entitled to all your wealth you had before marriage, and you're not entitled to the other party's wealth if you split up. Okay, yeah, that seems fair enough. What's wrong with that? It's a binding contract, except Australia, a few months ago now, has proven that is not the case because prenups can be disregarded by a judge. So yes, prenups, a legally binding contract, is now disregarded by the law. Yes, the law is disagreeing with the law because it favours the women. And that's always been the case because, hey, it is not one rule for everybody and it never has been. And if you ever try to call for real equality, then you're never going to get it. Unless you want equality of outcome, in which case, yes, everybody can have nothing. Except then, of course, you have the ruling elites who have a lot more. So you're still never going to get that equality. Because people don't want it. They don't. So I want more and the other people should have less because I'm deserving of it, because I'm underappreciated. Which gets us all into a psychological rabbit hole of how people think they're all unappreciated. And yes, some people are. And yes, it can be a fact that you're in a really bad situation. It seems like life is awful. But chances are, you can do something about it. And chances are, if you take ownership of where you are and take responsibility for your situation, you can actually enact change and make a better life for yourself and those around you. So, back on track, let's read on. So, quoting, does the owner of a homeowner need to disclose to a guest? I would, and do, when someone enters into my home, and it's probably something that the products themselves should try to indicate. Yes, so let's take the burden off of the people and put it back onto the products. We can't trust people to do that, no. Because if people were intelligent, they wouldn't buy our product. Okay, sorry. To be fair to Google, it hasn't completely ignored matters of 21st century privacy etiquette until now. As Mr. Osterloh points out, its Nest cameras shine an LED light when they are in a record mode, which cannot be overridden. But the idea of having to run around a home unplugging or at least restricting the capabilities of all its voice and camera-equipped kit for visitors to objects is quite the ask. Yes, which is why I strongly recommend to, at the very least, have a bit of tape over your cameras when you're done with them recording. I have that on my computers, for example, as in all the ones that I've had, the monitors. So, this is after one of its new launches, and there's Mr. Osterloh in the photo. So the conversation below has been edited for clarity and brevity. Cool, it doesn't matter because I'm going to edit it even more. So, they're saying people don't care about specifications anymore, they care more about consumer reviews. Yes, almost as if to say that the law and the regulations don't matter, they're going to care what people's experiences are. And the same goes when you wish to get a product, although I recommend reading customer reviews as well, which is also why it's very telling when sites disable reviews or comments, as they're more commonly referred to when it's intellectual property, that is, that your property is an idea instead of a tangible product. And so in the UK at least, I know that we have a Trustpilot, and that's very useful if you're trying to get a contractor out to fix up whatever you need fixing or repairing, or you're purchasing a new product. You can use that to see how trustworthy that company is in order to greatly inhibit your chances of being ripped off. So let's read on to, they say, there's been controversy over facial recognition tests carried out on the phone's behalf, as is used by China, funnily enough, but I suppose we can leave Operation Dragonfly, where they're developing things for China, even though they said they didn't, and then we found out to be developing it even more. We'll leave that aside for now. They say, yes, tests carried out on the phone's behalf. To make sure it works better with dark skin tones, there's been a report of a contractor targeted homeless people, offering them $5 or £4, but didn't properly, I presume properly explain what was going on. Can you address that? And they say it was very important for us to make sure the face unlock systems work for all different kinds of people, genders, races, etc. Yes, all two genders. And as a consequence, we wanted to make sure we were able to get a large number of data points that allowed us to perfect this model in a fair way. So we went out and did a lot of research in this area. It's come to our attention there may be some methods that are not approved, not how we would do business, so we're investigating that. We would never find that acceptable, and so we've suspended any data collection until this is straightened out. Personally, as far as it comes to homeless people, and I was thinking of this as a shower thought, and I recommend cold showers for this as well, even more so. I mean, it's good for your lymphatic system as well, but I recommend it for your health, but also because then you kind of need to meditate in order to get rid of the pain of the cold water. And that really helps you have other thoughts and more clarity to set you up for the day ahead, or maybe calm you down to go to sleep, as a cooler body temperature helps you sleep anyway. So a cooler bedroom is definitely recommended. But back on topic again, because you know how I do tangents. Yes, boss, calm down. So, they say that most of the uproar has not been about facial recognition and how you could easily then identify people, and of course was an uproar originally with biometrics and using your fingerprint in order to unlock your devices. Now it's become to facial recognition as well. Instead of saying, well, hang on, are you spying on us all the time, can we tell? They've gone to, well, were you actually were you disproving the theory of labour and saying that you can get it at different prices and that the free market allows you to do it for a lower price? Were you actually doing that? Can we pursue our communist goals instead of libertarian goals? So yes, let's focus on that. So of course they say yes, shouldn't target homeless people because yes, we shouldn't be giving homeless people money. No, we shouldn't be allowing them to actually get money for work. No, that wouldn't be good. So, hang on, what? Because that is what you're saying when you're saying no, it's not acceptable to target homeless people to give them an actual chance to get off the streets by paying them. Although I would say it's probably best to. It is difficult to say, but I am quite taken by Ben Shapiro's take on it to say he would criminalise homelessness, as in if you're sleeping on the streets, he would criminalise that. Obviously, if you're on public land and you're out camping and hunting and foresting and wanting to be one with the world, then you can go do that and nobody's going to stop you. But if you're getting in the way of people and you're much more likely to commit criminal acts as well, then criminalising it in its infancy is probably better, as prevention is better than the cure. But I would go one step further and say, well, I don't think people should end up with a criminal record, and there should be attempts for rehabilitation. Understanding the IQ differences, yes, sure, but there will still be some people who ended up on the streets despite their best efforts, and therefore are wanting to learn. And of course, you shouldn't put everybody who exhibits delinquent behaviour together, because that tends to exacerbate the problem, which is why prison and summer school they don't tend to work for rehabilitation. In which case, at the very least, you can pull the people together who are homeless despite their best efforts, and then give them opportunities and courses to educate themselves and receive that teaching and that help, in which case that will definitely work out for them. Although the Shawshank Redemption, although fictionalized, definitely shows that there are opportunities there, like libraries, for example, that if you wish you can spend your time learning, and I think that should definitely be pursued further, that learning opportunities should be encouraged in prisons in order to enable people to pursue a better life once they get out. But the same goes for homeless as well. That it's best to take them off the street initially and then help them away from the public so they're not causing a nuisance, as in a criminal nuisance, to the people passing by. And from there, of course, you can help out. And then if you wish to get into the bureaucratic structures and how that doesn't work and help, then I'm open to discussion. So, then they're saying, the question, do you still plan to retain the data collected in this way for 18 months? I reply, I don't know that we've discussed the length of time we're holding data, but there have been no changes to the program with respect to data retention. Cool, so they're saying this was bad, but we're still going to hold it for a year and a half, because hey, they don't care. They really don't care. They say the investigation concludes people didn't know whether they were consenting to, are you going to delete? They say the best approach here would be to discuss it once we've actually looked into the facts and understood what has happened. So yes, use it until it's too late to change it. Yes, that's understandable. That's what every big company is going to do, because the government is going to let them, because they get too much money to dismantle them, because they don't believe in the power of the people to create their own companies, even though that's how Google started. But nonetheless, we'll avoid that, because that goes into long-term thinking, whereas politicians just seem to think about the next election cycle. So, to end, we're going to go through regulation as promised. So the question, when Amazon recently unveiled its rival Ring smart cameras, many expected them to add facial recognition, but it decided not to. Do you think we need politicians to act quickly to set standards because there's a growing crisis of confidence? Yes, that is to say, do you think we should add more regulations? My contention is that the bigger companies like the regulations because they can easily find a way around it, and they don't care if they have to spend a bit more money in order to do so, whereas smaller companies can't do it, and it just stops competition from happening. So let's see. They say it would be great for regulation to be clarified quickly. Well, of course. The approach we're taking is to try to keep all of this information on devices as much as possible, and always keep it private and secure and encrypted. There's certainly a key responsibility to make sure the user's information is protected, but everyone would benefit from clarity of standards and regulation. It is a challenging space to navigate, and it is very important. It's thoroughly navigated. So, as we can see there, they're basically saying, yes, do regulate it, because then we can abide by the laws you set, other people can't, and then we can't be thought of as bad because the laws are set there. However, of course, laws are best made when they follow what the people want, so they're made to be descriptive instead of prescriptive. They're essentially made after the fact, so in a way it's kind of good that the law is slow because the law doesn't know what it's doing. That's why the 10 Commandments were basically the 10 observations to say, hey, here's what you guys are doing, let's show you what you're actually doing so you understand it, and then makes it easier to follow because you already know you're doing it, but it really helps to know what you're doing in order to continue it, and to have these things to keep in mind, to abide by, when it might be a bit ambiguous for morality's sake, then at least you have these commandments to abide by. If you want to get into that he was actually hallucinating from an ayahuasca plant burning and thinking it was God speaking to him and it was just his hallucination, or if that's the way to contact God, then that's a totally different conversation. But I will leave it at that. That essentially, yes, Google says they might be spying on you, in which case it's best to unplug everything and let guests know if they don't wish to be a part of it. And also they're hoping for regulation because they want to choke out smaller businesses, because bigger government helps those companies, because there can be no monopoly without government's help. So that's my conclusion, but let me know if I'm ridiculously wrong and you think government is benevolent and companies are not. I don't think they are anyway. They're driven by profit. Yes, of course, if there's enough public outcry, then they're going to stop. But let me know. Always intrigued to hear what you guys have to say. Thank you for your continued support, seeing as YouTube has throttled me recently. So thank you and have a good evening. Goodbye.